right, now hang on. I drove here in my minivan. That makes it really hard to feel cool, you know? And by the way, I used to drive a cool car, and let me tell you, when you drive a sexy vehicle around a hip part of town, you feel like, I'm the Wolf of Wall Street. You spend a few years driving a Honda Odyssey around a neighborhood called Pleasant Oak, and it becomes, I'm just trying to be more like those dogs on Bluey. I have to drive a minivan. I have to live in the suburbs because I have 6 kids. All right, well, you guys might be interested in my masterclass on responsible family planning. It's 20 seconds long, and it's called Just Don't. It's so funny, because I think back to when I was younger, people said that I should not have kids. They were very rude about it. They're like, Jen, you have no maternal instincts. You never will. You running a house with actual children in it, oh, that'd be a disaster. And now I have this big family, and I think back on that, and I'm like, they were so right. How did they know? They nailed it. No, guys, I had to have 6 kids. I am an only child. My husband is an only child. My father was an only child. My family tree was becoming a stump. Your annual family reunion should not fit at one table at Applebee's. And we went for it. We had 6 babies in 8 years. I said that at a comedy club one time, and a guy with face tattoos pushes through the crowds afterward. He had piercings all over his face, too. And he runs up to me and he says, hey, I really respect your alternative lifestyle. Let me tell you, when you announce your second pregnancy, people say, are you trying to get a boy and a girl? You announce your 6th pregnancy in 8 years, and people say, are you trying to get a reality show on TLC? What is wrong with you? So my husband and I just had a big anniversary. Yep. We have now been married 20 years. Now, those of you who have been married for a while know that as the years go on, you have to be intentional to keep the spice alive. So, for our 20th anniversary, I finally let my husband live his ultimate fantasy. I told him that for a whole night, I would take any constructive criticism he had for me. Okay, now you guys are pretty young, but when I say this in front of middle-aged crowds, there's always a couple 60-year-old guys in the back who are like, that is so hot. They're like, is there a place where I can just watch that on the internet? Like, that's what I'm into in this phase of life. No, that was a wild night. I haven't spoken to him since then, but... Now, this is the point, talking about kids and marriage, where a lot of people would make graphic jokes about how those children were conceived, how they were brought into the world. I will not be doing that because my husband is a very private person. He would have you know that we reproduce asexually. Like amoeba. He is so uptight about this kind of thing that he will not even send me any flirty texts. I try. A couple weeks ago, I texted him, hey there, looking pretty sexy today. He replied, received. With a period. I said, what are you worried about? We're married. He said, you're not thinking. What about this? What if we got into legal trouble and our phones got subpoenaed and our texts to one another were read aloud in open court? I said, okay, if that scenario played out, we would have a lot bigger issues than a couple of eggplant emoji. He hesitated to ask me out when we first met because I'm 3 inches taller than he is. And he said, I know a lot of women don't want to date shorter guys. I said, when I was single, I was goal-oriented. I said, look, if I can just find a man who is loving, who is supportive, who respects my boundaries by not asking me how much money I spent at Target, I don't care if he played one of the Munchkins in The Wizard of Oz. I'll stuff that man into a baby Bjorn. Take him out for a date night. We'll have a lovely time. You don't have to be able to ride a roller coaster with your spouse. It's not like a requirement, for a good marriage. People often comment, they say, Jen, your husband is so supportive of your career. And he really is, because he doesn't want to work anymore. I have a theory that on a deep caveman level, it is very important to men to be the primary providers for their wives and children for about 15, 20 years, and then they're out. I see these young wives on Instagram who are like, my husband completely provides financially for our entire family because for us, it's a sacred journey. I'm like, girl, you're in a relay race. You just don't know it. That man's gonna hit his 43rd birthday, run up to you, throw the baton at you, be like, this is your problem now, I'm out. This was surprising to me because my husband went to Yale. When I was dating him, I thought, man, if I can just get a ring on it, the minute we say I do, poof, all of my financial problems disappear. Single ladies, I need to inform you. Men have discovered work-life balance. So if that's the plan you want to get on, you're gonna need to go for old money. A couple years ago, he sat me down and he said, Jen, you stayed home with our children for so many years. Let it be my turn now. I said, okay, so I stayed home with them when they were a bunch of screaming gremlins. Now you're willing to stay home with them when they are a jovial brood of free bartenders and chauffeurs. And we got a lot of kids, so he's got like 2 dedicated kids just to make his queso. You know when I should have known this was coming? A while back, he started sending me a lot more girl boss memes on Instagram. It would be like, girls can do anything. Careers are for girls. A girl could support 6 kids while her husband goes sailing with his friend Scott. I was like, is he making these? I will say he is a very frugal man, so much so that he convinced our children that there's a very special elf at the North Pole. This elf is in charge of quality control. And he puts his special bright orange little sticker on only the finest toys. And his name is Clarence. The kids would open their toys at Christmas and he'd be like, oh, darn it, did they misspell Clarence's name again? Ha ha, oh. But Clarence is killing it. He is almost as good as the Easter Bunny's assistant rollback. He's like, these guys are incredible. I learned the hard way, do not let your very frugal spouse get gifts for the tooth fairy to give. My daughter had lost a tooth. It was time to set out the tooth fairy gifts. And I said, all right, what did you get? I knew it would be something from the discount bin at Walmart. So he pulls out his bag. The first thing he has in there, I swear to you this is true. Hand on my Bible app, I swear. It's a floppy rubber rat. I had so many questions, starting with where does the market demand for this product come from? Who was like, our home is not complete without, I don't know. I was like, okay, what else did you get? So he pulled out a bottle that had liquid in it. And I said, oh, is it a fragrance? He said, sort of. It was deer lure. Deer come to our neighborhood, and my daughter likes to see them. And he's like, look, check it out. It says authentic female deer urine, guaranteed to attract a mate. Kind of genius, right? I said, I just have to take a moment. So this is where our house is now. The tooth fairy is bringing pee. And it's for hunters. So on the back, there was a picture of an angry buck with rifle crosshairs over his little deer face. I said, this is literally the worst tooth fairy gift in the world. But it was 11 p.m. and I didn't have any better ideas, so that is what we left. Imagine my daughter rolling over that morning. She's like, oh, what did she sees what looks like a dead rat and a bottle of animal urine with a deer that's about to be shot on it. I don't think she thought the tooth fairy came. I think she thought the mafia came. When we had just 2 kids, we moved into this tiny little home, 1,900 square feet, 3 tiny little bedrooms, a little starter home. And as our family grew and grew, I realized I'm the only one who ever considered it a starter home. We now have 6 kids, a huge dog, and a cat, and we could adopt 15 more kids and 20 more pets, and my husband would not let us get a bigger house. We bought that thing in 2007 when housing prices were at rock bottom. I will celebrate my 100th birthday in that house. He is never upgrading. And he tries to get in my head with this. He says, Jen, studies show that having a small per person square footage actually leads to optimum family engagement. Studies show this. I'm like, studies from where? The Mother Hubbard Institute for Living in a Shoe? So people say, all right, Jen, 6 kids. So you're either Mormon, Catholic, or just a lot of fun. And we are Catholic. That's not normally the response I get when I say that. Did the Pope send you guys? What do you... No, so I was a lifelong atheist who converted to Catholicism. So I got the Uno reverse card, When I was exploring religion, my friends said, Jen, you should be spiritual but not religious. I've landed on religious but not spiritual. And that is as good as it's going to get. It's my best. And look, honestly, I know for people of faith, it is very important to have a vibrant, thriving friendship with Jesus. I truly believe this. It's just not going very well at all. And part of that is on his end. He has to take some responsibility here. This will help it make sense to you. My mother was a Phi Beta Kappa Honor Society math major. She's a retired mathematician who calculated kill ratios for the Naval Weapons Research Laboratory. My father was a Green Beret and an engineer. My grandfather was an engineer. My first job out of college was as a computer programmer. What I'm trying to tell you is that I am genetically designed to really struggle being friends with people who are invisible. I know Jesus has done a lot for me, okay? He has. But would it be too much to ask for the occasional comment on my Instagram? Like, slay, girl, you know? I'm just asking. Okay. Now, the way I came to believe in God is I read a whole bunch of theology books. So I know all the theology stuff. So I guess what I'm hoping is that heaven has an AP exam. So I can test out of being a good person. I get to the pearly gates, and St. Peter's like, Jen, you never forgave anyone. But your essay on transubstantiation was incredible. Come on in. Come on in. Heaven's like, we love an educated queen. That better be how it works. People ask what our parents thought of our conversions to Catholicism because my husband was also not raised Catholic. And what they said was, we are open-minded to all faiths, and we simply want you to be blah, 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 blah. I think what it was is because my husband is an only child and I'm an only child, we were their only shot at grandchildren. I think my mom and my mother-in-law were fist bumping each other like, thank God they found the one where they just breed recklessly. My dad got to the point where he was like, I got 6 grandkids out of this. I'll worship the Catholic God too. This is fine, you know. They actually got in on some of our stuff. My mother-in-law especially, her favorite thing, she was a good Southern Baptist woman, but her favorite thing was she loved this Catholic tradition we have where if we lose something, we say a prayer to St. Anthony. You guys know about it? Okay. I'm glad you guys know I was recently in a city where they had no idea what I was talking about, and that city was San Antonio. So my mother-in-law loved this. She was a tough East Texas woman, came from generational poverty. She was a single mother. And if you've ever known a woman like that, they are practical. They're all about whatever works. So she would start calling me up. You know, she'd lose her car keys. She'd be, cursing up a storm like, Jennifer, you got to say that prayer. Because she knows it works better if a Catholic says it. And I would say, I fancied myself as a bit of an evangelist for my religion. So I'd say, I want to let you know we're not praying to these saints like they're gods. It's like asking your neighbor if she'd be like, say the prayer, God, if I the guardians. So I'd say, St. Anthony, please come around. Something is lost and can't be found. She'd say, tell him it's the car keys. So I'd say the whole thing again. And she'd tell all her Southern Baptist friends about it. She'd say, I love this St. Anthony SOB. He is just, oh. And then one time, she lost some tax documents. It was a really big deal. She couldn't find them anywhere. She calls me hooting and hollering. She said, Jennifer, I can't find these tax documents anywhere. I don't know what I'm going to do. I said, calm down. Did you pray to St. Anthony? She said, Jennifer, I prayed to St. Anthony. I prayed to Jesus. Hell, I asked Jesus to say a prayer to St. Anthony. So I am the token Catholic in my family, in my group of friends, and I'm still getting used to it. It still feels kind of weird. And sometimes my old life and my new life collide. Like, one time we were visiting my grandfather, and my 3-year-old daughter got into his prescription anti-anxiety medication. It was scary. She was okay. We took her to the ER, and the nurse said, okay, she will be okay, but the clinical diagnosis is she is high as a kite. She said she can't name her colors, but she can smell them. The nurse looked at us, this respectable Catholic mom and dad. She said, do you think you could think of any way to entertain her while she's in this state so that we can keep her under observation for a few hours? The memories were instantaneous. We put on Pink Floyd's The Wall. We found the YouTube video. There's just 10 hours of a spinning eye. My husband's like, do the thing where you do your hands like this. Like, I think the nurse was like, okay, if they break out glow sticks and start dancing, like, I'm gonna have to kick them out. Another time, I made the mistake of inviting the president of my homeowners association and her 2 young children over to my house for a play date. It was going well, and then her 5-year-old ran inside and said, "Mommy, they have the best sandbox toy." And I was like, did we? Okay. He's like, you gotta come see it. So we go outside, and his brother is holding up, it has a big funnel at the top, and then a long tube. It had my husband's fraternity logo on it. And all down the tube were the all capital words, chug, 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 chug. And her kids are happily pouring sand down it. She said, what kind of sandbox toy is this? I said, I don't know, but Mattel has really fallen off. So it's hard raising this Catholic big family when I don't know anything about being Catholic and I don't know anything about having a big family. And then on top of that, I struggle. I mean, I have pretty severe ADHD, and I am also slightly on the Asperger's spectrum. Anyone else been diagnosed on TikTok? I might also have generalized anxiety disorder, but Kaylee hasn't posted part 4 to the video because she's been grounded, so... Yeah, we're just kind of waiting to figure that one out. So that doesn't go well. Me trying to run this house. When it was my turn to bring snacks to Vacation Bible School, the kids learned about fasting that day. I do try. Like, for my daughter's birthday, I made her this really fun Monsters in the Slime Pit birthday cake, and it was supposed to be a Mermaids at the Beach cake, but that is my best effort. One of the hardest things for me was that, so 4 of my kids are girls, and doll clothes, I didn't see that part of parenting coming. One of my friends said, Jen, your girls' dolly clothes are a mess. You need to find an organizational system that allows the dollies to mix and match their outfits. I was like, look around. You may notice that fully half of my human children are not dressed. The dolls ain't making the cut, honey. Gonna be a nudist colony up in here. One time my mom sent one of her classy friends over to the house right when this lady walks into the door. My daughters have put their Barbies in the 2 Barbies in a hot pink Barbie Corvette. They're all strapped in. And like, vroom, here we go, here we go. Except the Barbies are completely naked. My mom's friend said, what is going on with these Barbies? I said, look, I bought them teacher Barbie. Now they're a whole different kind of Barbie. But these Barbies make a lot more money than teacher Barbies, so they're fine. But officially, the hardest thing about parenting for me was shoes. I am expected to find 12 shoes every time I leave the house. And look, whether you're a parent or not, if you've ever dealt with kids in any capacity, I don't know if you've gotten to this point where you're trying to get out the door, you look down at what this kid is wearing, and you're like, okay, you have a purple bunny slipper on one foot. On the other foot, you have a high-heeled plastic princess shoe. But we are 43 minutes late. Let's go. Let's just get in the car. I don't care anymore. And you're like, as long as we don't run into any of his friends, it should be fine, you know? One time, we were headed out to a picnic that my church was having. It was way far away from home, no turning back now. Right as we are rolling up, my daughter says from the back, "Mommy, I forgot my shoes." And I was like, oh, God. It's so frustrating because you know how it is. You know how you want to show up when you hang out with people from church. You know, you want to show up like a total fraud. Just not who you actually are at all. I'd even given the kids the rundown. I'd said, like, hey, remember, listen, tell everybody that your clothes look like that because we went on a nature walk. I was at my limit. I call my husband. I am ranting. I am raving. And he tried to solve the problem. Gentlemen, if your wife calls you screaming the details about how yet another day in her life has degenerated into a complete dumpster fire, the only answer she is looking for is, "Oh my gosh, honey, your life is so hard. How do you even do it?" Feel free to take notes. My husband actually said to me, "My rollerblades are in the trunk." I said, she is a 9-year-old girl. What are you imagining? She's just gonna stand there stiffly in the rollerblades and I push her through the picnic? And then he's getting annoyed because his wife doesn't like solutions. Then he says, these words actually left his mouth. Then he says, "Somewhere in the minivan are a roll of paper towels and rubber bands." Some of you know where he was going with that. I did not. I said, "What?" He said, "Moccasins." I said, "Okay, well, there it is. There it is. That is officially the stupidest idea I have ever heard. And also, it would never work." He said, "It worked last time I took him to church." At some point, you lose respect for the people in your community for not calling Child Protective Services on you. You really should have called in a well check on that one. My kids probably did get used to not wearing shoes, because a lot of times I would just throw them into the car and just drive them nowhere, just drive them aimlessly, because the car is the only place you can legally strap down your children. I restrain them in my living room and I'm a felon. The law is like, look, as long as you're going 70 miles an hour, like, it's cool. Don't even worry about it. It's fine. So people would hear that, and they'd say, well, Jen, then just put your kids in the car and drive around. If that calmed them down, just do that. See, it's the word just. If you have ever dealt with young children in any capacity, you know that there's no just doing anything. Trying to get a bunch of very young children into a vehicle is exactly like trying to get a bunch of very drunk people into a vehicle. Three of whom have to be strapped into 5-point harnesses. While you're messing around with that, two of them get in a fight. They're all babbling incoherently. Somebody throws up. You finally get them all settled. You get in the driver's seat. You are sweaty. You are angry. But finally it's done. You crank the ignition and somebody poops their pants. Am I right? Now, those applause were mostly from moms. But there were a couple of guys who were like, I have a lot of alcoholic friends, and that's very accurate, yeah. One of my teen daughters was walking through the house the other day, and she looked around and she said, wow, we're white trash. I said, hey, your generation doesn't understand anything. No, we're not. I said, listen. I said, look, we might live a little differently than some of your friends. But that is because your father is frugal and your mother is neurodivergent. Look it up. I said, okay, yes, I said that I was going to do a gallery wall in the living room, all right? And yes, so far it's only one picture that is crooked, and it's just that hot couple that came in the frame. But I got distracted by another project, and I just haven't had a chance to finish it in 8 months. And so, yeah, give me a break. And I said, listen, I do know that all of our lawn furniture out back, it's broken, it's rusty, and yes, your friend got trapped in the chaise lounge last time she was here. I was like, she was fine. She didn't need to do that much screaming. Like, it was... I said, but Dad has pointed out we don't have to buy a new one because if you just sit in it the right way, it won't collapse on you. I'm like, oh, we are white trash. Oh, yeah, we 100% are. A lady down the street, she said, Jen, when children spend the night at my home, I like to send them home with one of my homemade baked goods and a handwritten card that says, you're always welcome in our home. She said, what do you send children home with who visit your home? I said, usually a tetanus shot. She also pointed out, she said, you have 6 kids, but you don't have any yard signs, like a captain of the football team or whatever. She said, are you not proud of your children? I said, I'm very proud of my children. They just don't make yard signs for what we're good at. Get me a sign that says, proud mom of a Minecraft warlord. And I'll take 6. Parenting is hard, though. I finally sat my oldest kid down, and I had the sex talk. And I learned so much. Very informative. And look, I know that we try to keep our kids from seeing crazy things on the internet. As someone who might be a few years ahead of some of you in parenting, I just want to tell you that when it comes to internet security, give up. Give up. These kids are going to beat you every time. And I know that there are at least a couple of people who are thinking, speak for yourself, Jen. Not in our house. We have internet security locked down. You were born in a year that starts with 19. And you think you're going to outsmart someone who's never known a world without iPhones? I get it, though. That was us. My husband and I both used to work in high tech. That's actually how we met, at a high tech company. So we called our friends who worked at Google, and we said, what is the gold standard? Give us just the top internet security thing. They said, okay, there is a router. The router is the thing that broadcasts the Wi-Fi to the house. They said, there's a good one. It cost $400, but it is the best. So we got it, and it was the best. This thing was incredible. It would show, you could log in and see all of the different devices that were using Wi-Fi. So it would be like Donald's laptop, Lucy's iPad, Kate's iPad, and then the other, like downstairs Alexa, kitchen crock pot. I could go up there, and I could be like, restrict, when it was screens off time, turn off, no more internet for you, no more Wi-Fi for you. And as I did it, I would think, you know what feels amazing? Having parenting all figured out. I was like, I should mentor. This is incredible. This came up the other day. I happened to say, I said, in front of my teen daughter, I said, that $400 router was really key to our home internet safety. She said, that $400 router was a paperweight. I said, no, I know that it wasn't, because I would watch, like, turn off Wi-Fi. She said, Mom, I babysat for the neighbors. I had their Wi-Fi password. I said, is that why you were always over in that one corner of the house? She said, yeah, I got 3 bars over there. What kills me about that is that that's where our bookshelf is. And so I would see her spending hours over there. And I would think, I've instilled a love of reading in my children. My son went to college this year. He's studying computer science. I said, son, what instilled you with a passion for this field of study? Was it perhaps one of the many books I bought you about the founders of the sciences? He said, do you remember that $400 router? He taught himself how to change the names of devices on a network for 5 years. His laptop was called Kitchen Crockpot. And then he figured out to change the name of the crock pot to Donald's laptop. He tells me now that he would sit up in his room and laugh himself to the point of tears when I'd be like, no more internet for you, mister. Click. And then I'd go downstairs to make something in the crock pot. And I'd be like, this thing hardly ever works. What's going on here? Oh. Guys, I called the manufacturer. Give up. This was affirmed for me after a show one time. A young fan who is 23 now, she came up to me and she said, no, Jen, she said, you're exactly right. When she was a senior in high school, she wanted to send some wild messages with her boyfriend, but her mom checked her phone. Her mom had all the software, social media monitoring stuff. So what she did is she created a Google Sheets spreadsheet called Budget Finance Analysis. And she shared it with her boyfriend. So they could both see whatever was in there, and they would just exchange crazy messages that way. And I said, okay, wow, that's inappropriate. I'm glad you stopped doing that. But thank you. I mean, you proved my point. Yeah, thank you for that information. And as I walked away, I thought, I wonder if that's how I could finally get my husband to, like... He's a pretty analytical guy, you know? He might be like, I don't know, I saw that you use conditional formatting in cell C17. I mean, honestly, he would get excited. If I shared that spreadsheet with him, he'd be like, my wife created a budget? Now, so I openly admit parenting being so hard for me, I just let screens babysit my kids all the time. Oh man, our TV was on so much. I'm surprised the CEO of Netflix didn't call me, like, what is going on over there? I'm not saying it's good. I'm not saying that we were thriving. Yes, at one point, I thought that the Teletubbies were personally communicating with me. I'm not saying it was like a great situation, but as a modern parent, you do what you gotta do to survive. And then people would be like, Jen, your generation is so lazy. You know, your great-grandmother's generation, they raised all of these kids without ever once using a screen. To which I say, yeah, they had something that we don't have, and that is called outside. My great-grandmother never saw her kids. They'd take the family shotgun, head out into the woods, spend all day hunting small animals for her to skin and cook up for dinner. My homeowners association has policies against that. So it's gonna be 5 hours of Paw Patrol today. We didn't even have the good shows. We were the Dora the Explorer era. You guys know Dora? Okay. I have a Pavlovian response to that name. I just start. There's a character on Dora called the Map. He introduces himself with the same song every time. Let me see if I can remember these lyrics. It'll be hard. Lord be with me. I'll see if I can do it. I think it's, I'm the map, I'm the map, I'm the map, what's next? Oh, I'm the map. And then it just ends with, I'm the map. Somebody got paid to write that. In their defense, I have been that hungover at work. You're like, let's just copy paste. Maybe nobody will notice. Let me tell you, you hear that 17 times in one day, and you start getting philosophical. I was like, who are you trying to convince you're the map? Is it us or perhaps yourself? Deep down inside, are you scared that you're just a chart? Thomas, we had Thomas the Train. Hang on. Did you ever notice that the only compliment the narrator ever gives those little trains is that they're useful? It's like, Thomas was a very useful engine. Polly was a very useful engine. I'm like, what happens to them if they stop becoming useful as workers? I thought, I'm getting very communist vibes from this show. Don't get me wrong, I still let my kids watch it. They'd start screaming, hitting each other with the naked Barbies. I'd be like, children, let us check in with Comrade Thomas today. I finally figured out the right way to let screens babysit your kids. You gotta break out the good stuff. You see, back in my day, we had a roadrunner and a coyote who dropped anvils on each other's heads. We had a guy named He-Man who got amazing powers by holding up a piece of metal in a lightning storm. And we had a cat and mouse who ran around a house all day chasing each other with meat cleavers. Today, the plot of literally every children's TV show is, this character has a group of supportive friends. And they recycle. They won't stream the good stuff anymore, so I wised up and I bought some bootleg copies on eBay of some old cartoons. Let me just tell you, the first time I popped in a 1976 Looney Tunes, my 8-year-old son saw one character light a stick of TNT, throw it at his enemy. The enemy comes running back on fire, shooting 3 bazookas at once. My son turned around and said, "You have been holding out on me." I use TV for all sorts of stuff. Because I'd never seen this life that I'm living done, I turned to the TV for inspiration for myself. I openly admit, I actually, I learned a lot about what it means to be a mom from that classic TV show that makes having a big family look like so much fun. You know, Game of Thrones? That was very inspiring to me. I would watch that show and I'd be like, nobody asks those moms what they do all day. I don't see them having to make a meal plan. I said, these women on this show, man, they get involved in everyone's drama so that all their kids can marry rich and nobody in this family ever has to work again. I'm like, that is a model of motherhood I can get into. I realized I'm not a stay-at-home mom, I'm a stay-at-home matriarch. And I think that's the biggest thing I've learned from this wild ride of being someone not at all cut out to have kids, and yet I have this big family, is whether you're a parent or you're an aunt or an uncle, if you work with kids in any capacity, you have to connect with them in a way that is authentic to you, even if it looks a little different. And it took me a while to learn this. When I was a young mom, I thought that all moms were supposed to do glitter crafts with kids. I very quickly learned that if I ever do glitter crafts with young children again, the only result of that's going to be that I will be the most sparkly person in the psych ward. Cannot do it. But I realized, look, if it involving your family in some absolutely grandiose plan that sounds amazing and exciting, and you have not thought through any details about how you are actually going to make this happen, I am your woman. So for my first comedy tour, I wanted to go on tour, but I had no agent, I had no manager, nobody would book me anywhere. I had people hang up on me. So I decided that I would just rent theaters all across the country on my own on my personal credit card. And I did it. Then I realized I spent all my money renting the theaters, and I had no money left over for staff. So I turned to the age-old tradition of child labor. I would knock on my kid's door like, "Hey, honey, do you want tater tots with dinner? And do you want to manage a national theater tour?" And honestly, it was this great bonding thing between me and my kids. A little different, but it really worked. And they got so much mileage out of this experience. Can you even imagine? After that summer, when they reconnected with their little friends, their friends would be like, "What did you do this summer?" "I rode the big slide at the water park." My kids were like, "So I was in Toledo and the guys put the 36C gels on the lights," and I'm like, "Why do I even have a rider if you people aren't gonna read it?" They're still getting mileage. They're still getting mileage out of that. So I started to just involve them in my career. I realized you don't have to put up these rigid walls between work life and family life. And so they were actually involved in one of the biggest decisions of my career. Some of you guys know about my background of being a daily SiriusXM talk radio host. Well, you know how that ends. So in consultation with my kids, we decided together that I would quit that job to pursue my dream of doing stand-up comedy touring full time. In March of 2020. No, I had some great shows in 2020 in front of the bathroom mirror. Granted, the audience was really drunk. Okay, here's actually something really funny about that. At the beginning of that year, my kids told me that I should make a vision board for what I want from my life. And they said, what you do is you take a piece of cardboard, you put pictures on it of what you want in your life. And one of my daughters said, so one of my friends says that whatever you put on your vision board will manifest. And she's from a hippie family. And I said, hey, we do not believe in manifesting. And they said, oh, because we're Catholic? I said, no, because I had a whole vision wall from Marky Mark back in the day. And he never showed up at my house, so that doesn't work. But I said, yeah, sure, I'll do it for inspiration. So I printed out pictures from the internet of all these different theaters and clubs that I wanted to tour to. And all of the pictures were from standing on the stage and then looking out at the venue. Very inspiring. So I filled the vision board. This is my tour. I put in big, huge letters, 2020 at the top, and I hung it up, and you know what happened next. I was like, okay, well, you can tell your hippie friend how this worked out. I think we know whose religion is the right one now. Then one day, that friend was over at our house, and she pointed something out. Do you know what kind of pictures venues have to put of their establishments on the internet? Can't have people in it for legal reasons. My 2020 vision board, she looks at it and says, Mrs. Fulwiler, your vision board is all of these theaters all over the country being empty. My kids were like, bro, mom manifested the pandemic. Yeah, I'm sorry about that, guys. My bad. And so at first, when my career collapsed, I had no radio job, no comedy tour, I tried to put on a brave face. And I said to my kids, I said, listen, shoot for the moon. If you miss, you'll hit the stars. And one day, one of my daughters came home and she said, Mom, I know you don't believe any of that. And I found this at a coffee shop. It was a card that said, shoot for the moon. If you miss, you'll be in space where nobody can hear you scream. And that reminded me, I was like, you know what? Yeah, I don't need to put up these walls. I can actually bring my children into what is really going on here and how I feel. So I said, okay, look, it's a problem. We have to figure something out. And by the way, credit to my husband. He was there too. He said, Jen, I love you, and I will do anything to help you get through this as long as I do not have to go back to work. He was sending me girl boss memes like, girls can make money in a pandemic. My kids suggested, they said, you can't tour, but why don't you do funny videos and put them on this brand new app called TikTok? I said, okay, I've never heard of that, but fine. So I made videos, uploaded them, didn't think anything of it. Then one day I checked TikTok. I had over 100,000 followers. I said, kids, mommy is a TikTok star. They were like, this is the worst idea we've ever had. This is, no. So now I kind of have the ultimate parenting threat. The other day, nobody was doing the dishes. They were all passing the buck on whose turn it was to do the dishes. I said, okay, if these dishes aren't done in 10 minutes, I'm not taking away your phones. I'm getting out my phone. And I will open up my TikTok app, and I'm gonna dance. And if there is one thing they know about me, it is that I cannot dance. I'm like, hey guys, don't worry. I will be sure to shout out each one of you by name and the names of your schools. I'm like, what is that new dance? It's called the booty slap slap. I'll just be figuring it out while I do the dishes. I had 2 kids on dishes, 2 kids doing baseboard, 1 cleaning the fans. Man, I don't even have to say anything anymore. I'm like, ooh, dishes aren't getting done. And a lot of you parents, you're trying to keep your kids off of TikTok. You need to play 4D chess. Guys, just become a TikTok star. My kids hate that app. They're like, I see them put their phones away. I'm like, hey, you are not done liking and sharing mommy's content. I'm like, did you even leave a comment? Look, there are 6 of you. I could be crushing it in the algorithm. But getting my kids' advice on that, seriously, it saved my career. I had all of these new fans who were suddenly encountering my alternative lifestyle and my perspective and my comedy. And it was really brought home to me one time when something went viral and somebody left a comment saying, hey, I'm a new fan and I know this video was supposed to be funny, but I just wanted to let you know that it hit me in what is the darkest season of my life, and it gave me hope that maybe tomorrow will be a little better. And sincerely, I got choked up because really, that's why I do this. Life is hard. And I love being able to give people just a little break where they can just forget about their problems and laugh for a while. So I'm like, wiping tears out of my eyes. I was like, hey, one day I will be back on tour again. This hard time is going to end. Tell me what city you are in. I will invite you to my private green room. You can sit next to me. I will take you by the hand. I will look you in the eye, and I will pray with you. And I'll buy us a round of tequila shots just to make sure we have all the bases covered. And I said, I will tell you in person that it's all going to be okay. And they said, I'm a 14-year-old boy, so I'll have to ask my mom. My kids were watching all this play out. They're like, somebody get that $400 router. We've got to keep mom off the internet.